Hello, fellow detectives. Welcome to Unlocked, the official podcast for all things Nancy Drew by Her Interactive. I am your host, Tammy Tuckey, and this week we welcome a producer and a designer, Mari Tokuda, to the show. Welcome!
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. I don't think we've talked to anybody who's been specifically a designer and a producer with the Nancy Drew games. And it's very difficult, I feel, to put together a storyline that keeps your players hooked and playing the entire game, because these games, they can take like 2 to 3 days or a week to complete. So kudos to you first off for making some amazing games.
Thank you.
There are a couple of things you worked on. I think the first one you said that you worked on was the Curse of Blackmoor Manor, correct?
Yes.
And what did you do for that one specifically?
I believe I came in as a production assistant or production coordinator, and so I was doing scripting for the different puzzles and walking through the environments and things like that. So, and adding sound effects and making sure the music was working and all that fun stuff.
Were you one of the people who played the final game once it was completed just to double check for things?
Oh, we all did.
How long does it take you guys to test it? After you've played it, it sounds like you're going to play it about 3 times. So are you kind of like rushing through it, or you're taking your time?
It depends on which run-through we're doing. So on the first one, we'll really take our time and kind of get through as far as we can unless we run into a bug and then stop and start over again. And then later run-throughs is... they're a lot faster because you know all the answers to the puzzles and you know how to play through it and you know the fastest way through. So the later playthroughs are definitely much faster than the first one.
So were you one of the people who puts in those Easter eggs?
That was a collaboration between different departments. So a lot of the Easter eggs came from the art department or planned by the designer and then put in later.
You move on from the Curse of the Blackmoor Manor to Last Train to Blue Moon Canyon, and I really like this one. I really am a big fan of it because I love anything historically relevant to something like that, because Lincoln is involved in the train. I love trains, so I really love this one. I like where you guys were going with it. So what was it like to work on that specific project?
Oh, well, they were all so much fun, and the team was so fantastic that... You know, it was great. Great working with everyone, great working on all the projects. What they did with the mascot character was really clever because it allowed us to have another character, but without all the pressures of animating the faces and the mouth. But we had just a hilarious character to go along with it. And I thought that they did a fantastic job with that, from the art to the voice acting.
It was a surprise because I think the first time I played it, I got scared because it moved. And I went, what is this? But it worked out great.
Yeah.
And Nancy's so lucky. She gets to go from train to Paris. So Danger by Design, which is a different story and a really interesting one with Manette. But as a production coordinator, what's the difference between being an assistant to a coordinator?
I believe, I think I was just doing more scripting and sound effects and things like that. So I had some more responsibilities as far as helping get the game created.
That one seemed a little bit more intricate in design because you guys have a map of France. There's so many different destinations she has to go to. This seemed like you really had to know France, at least the locations. So how was that decided, or how was that designed specifically? Did anybody on your crew, even you, had you been to France where you could say, oh, this is where this location is, and maybe we could have something similar to that?
I believe that the designer had been to France several times, and he was fluent in French. So
ooh, that's a plus.
Yeah, he knew a lot about it. And I remember that the logic for that one, particularly the area where you're talking to all the vendors, was very complex and required a lot of work.
And then we go to Hawaii with the creature of Kapu Cave. I was like, we're going to all these destinations that are honeymoon destinations. I love it. Bringing back the Hardy Boys was a good idea too, because I think everybody loves them. So what do you think about adding them to the games along with Bess and George and Ned himself?
I thought it was always fun to have more friends that you could talk to in the games, and that was always fantastic. So having Bess and George and the Hardy Boys and Ned. I mean, the more options, the better, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the fact that you guys introduced the Hardy Boys in Blue Moon Canyon in person was another step up, because I don't think a lot of us were expecting that. We were just expecting phone call, you know what I mean? So that was really cool. And then going right to the blog, you would do weekly puzzles for the Sleuth blog. So what was it like to design those? Because everybody likes I feel like the Nancy Drew fans are big fans of those difficult puzzles, and I feel like being able to design something like that must be so difficult, because you want it to be different than the last one you did.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, actually. I believe there was a marketing intern at Her Interactive at the time, and together we sort of decided that, oh, well, let's do these puzzles. And I think he approached me and said, hey, let's work on this. And so I started creating puzzles every week for the blog, and it was a lot of fun to create that. And I mean, you know, they were not quite as polished necessarily as the puzzles that you'd see in the game, but you know, there's a charm to that. When you've just got, photos or quick sketches or things like that. And I got to play around with different ways to code or decode or encrypt things. And so that was a lot of fun. And then watching the people work through it was really interesting.
And then one unique game out of all of the ones that are listed here is The Secret of the Old Clock, because that was commemorating Nancy Drew's anniversary of being created. And I think a lot of people were surprised that you kind of took away the modern appeal of Nancy, inserted her back into her own time frame. As a lead designer on that one, what was the thought process into trying to get that sense of nostalgic Nancy Drew?
Well, that was a really fun one to work on. And actually, Max Holacek, I believe you interviewed him already.
Yeah.
He did a lot of the groundwork on that. And so a lot of the story was set and everything, and I came in and worked on the puzzles mostly and designed those. So props to Max for doing a great job and leaving me in a great position. But yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun, like with the mini golf and things like that, and creating sort of that world and those. And sorry, I'm totally blanking out.
No, River Heights. It was cool to see like what River Heights was back in the day, and with the pies and with her car. Oh, so cute! I loved it.
And it was really interesting too, because since it was set in the 1930s, Nancy couldn't just go to a computer and look things up or use her phone or things like that. And so that actually really helps a lot with creating a mystery.
And then you kind of have this introduction into a new set of Nancy Drew games that are of a different universe, I guess you could say, even though they're still including Nancy. So Lights, Camera, Curses, and Resorting to Danger. And I remember playing these for the first time, and I thought, I really like how that you have a different person who is the bad guy anytime you play, and there are different ways to get from point A to point B, because the regular classic games do that, but this was a unique way, an unique style of design for the games, and I really liked what you guys came up with. So what was the initial inspiration to trying out these different games?
Well, I know that the executives at Her Interactive were really interested in casual games, because the classic games are not necessarily geared towards a casual crowd. And so they were, and since casual gamers at the time were primarily women. I believe they still are predominantly women. We thought that the Nancy Drew character would be a really great fit. And so they wanted to sort of move in that direction. So the initial idea was, what's something that's in the spirit of the classic Nancy Drew games, but can be geared for a more casual audience. What was really fun for us was watching as people finish the games, and then they were comparing notes on who was the villain. And when they realized that there could be more than one villain, people got really excited, and that was really fun for us to see.
Well, there was, I think, at the end of Resorting to Danger, there was a preview for the next game, which was Ship of Shadows, and this was never released, technically, but what can you tell us about this game? Because we got a little bit of a taste of it towards that little commercial preview, but what was completed by that time? Was it completed? What was the storyline that you can tell us?
Oh, so Ship of Shadows we were all really excited about, because with Lights, Camera, Curses, it was, we were trying to figure out this new thing. It was very experimental. We were trying to figure out how we could do what we wanted to do with the resources we had. And so it was a bit of a scramble and a little chaotic. And with Resorting to Danger, it was, we were really starting to figure things out. And by Ship of Shadows, we felt as a team that we were really hitting our groove. And so we were really, really excited about that one. And it was going to take place on a cruise ship. And we were initially thinking that it was going to be, one of those really cool, fancy new cruise ships. And we actually got to tour. We got a behind-the-scenes tour of one of the cruise ships that docks in Seattle. And it was amazing. And these cruise ships are beautiful and so clean and so efficiently built and just really fun. But then we kind of realized, oh, well, we just did, a spa. And so we sort of decided to go a different direction with the cruise ship and do an older cruise ship instead of one of the new fancy ones, because that would give us a little more of history with the cruise ship, and we could give it like a really eccentric builder, and it could have a very different feel than Resorting to Danger. So we wanted to go with sort of like a grittier, spookier feel with like an old transatlantic ocean liner or something like that.
So how far along was the game before it was, the project was canceled?
Ooh, I think we were about not quite halfway done.
Wow.
So I think most of the design was there. We were working on probably most of the dialogue. That might have been done, actually. I can't quite remember. A lot of the puzzles were designed. Yeah, we were about halfway there.
So it's currently on the shelf, as they say, in quotations, but has there been any discussion about maybe finishing the project? Would you be interested in doing that? Do you think the rest of the crew would be interested in coming back, even if it's only some of them?
I'm sure that some of them would. I mean, they were a fantastic group of people to work with. I mean, I absolutely loved working with that team. If they asked us to come back, it might, it would be really interesting. I mean, we've all kind of gone our own ways, and I don't know if it would be possible, but I like to think it would be.
I know that this one would have been a hit, but you've been doing a lot of things since Nancy Drew. What new games or what new projects have you been doing since then?
So I am doing more writing now, creative writing, and interactive fiction type things. I'm always coming out with new stuff. So I'm working with different companies, and I'm working on different products and different licenses and things like that. So if you follow me on Twitter or Facebook or go to my website, you can see what I'm working on and coming out with things. At one of my previous jobs, we were creating an interactive novel. And unfortunately, that project got canceled. It happens a lot in this industry, so
you kind of get used to it after a while.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. But because the project got canceled, they allowed me to take it and use it as a portfolio piece, and so I turned it into a linear storyline as opposed to interactive novel, and I threw that up on Wattpad as a portfolio piece, so that's free if you want to go look at that.
Where can we find these pieces again? You said you have a website and Facebook and Twitter page. Can you tell the listeners what they are?
Yes, my website is maritokuda.com, and my Twitter handle is Mari Tokuda, and on Facebook I believe it's Mari Tokuda Writes. But if you go to my website, you can
find direct links to both pages too, just in case.
Right. And also my project list if you want to see what I've worked on.
You've worked on other games for Big Fish, right?
Yes. Actually, after Ship of Shadows was canceled, the team decided that we wanted to keep working together because we'd put out 2 games together and we really liked working together. And so we started a company called Passion Fruit Games. And we created 1 game there, and it went through Big Fish. So they were our publisher and distributor. As far as also what I'm working on, I have a book coming out with Zoozle Media. So it's going to be they do sort of the non-linear storytelling where their tagline is change the story. And so there are different endings that you can get depending on which path you take through the book. And I have a book coming out with them that's based on the American Revolution, and I'm really excited about that coming out.
I can't thank you enough for being on the show. This was a lot of fun, and before we end, I have one final question, which is, if you could describe your experience working with Her Interactive and being a part of the Nancy Drew universe using one word, what would that be?
I would say collaboration, because working with the people, they were so smart and so talented and so creative. I mean, when I was designing, anything I designed was so much more amazing than anything I imagined.